So, hello, welcome back. I hope everybody is here. So we will now go to our roundtable discussion. So we will have. Are we already at? So still 10 minutes, 10 seconds to go. So I didn't check whether everyone is here, but I think it is the case. So yeah, welcome back and welcome to our roundtable discussion. So we now have about 45 minutes of roundtable discussion on the infrastructures of the future. And in this discussion, we will have several quite interesting discussionists, panelists. So we will have Adam Abdin, who is a member of postdoc at the Future Cities Lab between Centralized and Central Pekin and Beihang University. And he's mainly interested in working on the interaction between autonomous vehicles and electricity grid. We will have Jan Briand, who is a project leader and responsible for the mobility topic in System X. So he's responsible for several projects, and he's also managing more or less our activities in the mobility sector. And he's very much involved in several projects that also with the digital infrastructure background. I'm also very happy to welcome Eric Lacombe from Nokia Bell-Labs, who is they are responsible for the mobility projects. And then I have two members of the Anthropolis Chair here who will present our point of view from our chair side. Edgar Kay, who is also at Nokia Bell-Labs and who spent some time in our chair, and Tarek Chouaki, who is a PhD student in the chair. So welcome to everyone. I will now hand over to Tarek for his presentation. I think I have the presentation here, so I just give you the Tarek and Edgar. I give you the floor for starting to present the point of view of the Anthropolis Chair.
Yes, thank you, Jacob. As Jacob said, I am Tarek Chouaki. I'm a PhD student in the Chair Anthropolis, and I will take a couple of minutes just to present you the view of the Chair on the infrastructure topic, which is a very important topic to us. Jacob, we are seeing your screen. Can you please show the slides again? Thank you, Jacob.
Sorry for that.
No problem. So regarding the infrastructure of the future topic in our chair, we consider mainly four subtopics. First, we would like to really define what we consider as mobility infrastructure. And I would like to take the occasion to thank our two keynote speakers from this morning for their precious insights on this topic in general. Also, very important to our chair is the sustainability topic, and we would like to define and study sustainability conditions in the development of mobility infrastructures. Then we would like to study governance models regarding the infrastructure, who manages what and who has controls over what. And then finally, one thing that we would like to do, and especially in the topic of my thesis, which is using agent-based mobility simulations, we would like to propose methods for planning future infrastructures, like where should charging stations be located for autonomous vehicles, etc. So these are the four topics regarding infrastructure in our chair. And now I will give the floor to Edgar, who will present to you how we consider infrastructure in the chair in general. Please, Edgar.
Edgar, can you hear us? Are you here? Ah, yes. I can see you, Edgar, but I cannot hear you. Edgar?
Hello?
Yes, now we can hear you. And now you turned on.
I'm connected on two computers, so it was a mess.
Okay.
Disturbance. So yeah, as Tarek mentioned, I'm happy to present the vision of the chair when we speak of the future of infrastructure. So we have came up with a representation on the left, which pictures basically the new digital capabilities that are being provided to the current physical infrastructure stack. So we have come up with this 4-layer distribution where we can see that at the bottom, we have what we call the physical infrastructure stack, being the current roadways, the current cities, the concrete that we have seen in the cities. On top of which, in the digital infrastructure stack, we have pictured the different capabilities that are coming from digitalization. So notably the connectivity side, but also the road sensors, the cameras, the HD maps, which are all technologies / capabilities that are being provided to the current physical infrastructure stack. Then on top of it, we have what we call the coordination infrastructure stack, which is a level of automation and intelligence that is a little bit beyond the digital infrastructure stack. So in this coordination infrastructure stack, we have, of course, the different cloud automation platforms, meaning the platforms who can automate and integrate the work coming from the different components that you see at the bottom. Then we also have what we call IaaS, which is integration as a service platforms that can basically interoperate the different elements coming from different third parties or coming from different legacy systems, like the road operators, but also the OEMs, but also the traffic management companies. So really be able to integrate components from different parties. Then we also have the APIs and the edge compute. So those are two different things. API meaning more for the connection between the different blocks, and also the edge compute being more the algorithms and the intelligence that is either central or distributed to power basically the whole system. And so finally, on top of it, we have this operation infrastructure stack, operation management stack, which is basically comprised of what we call the connected vehicles at large. So not only cars, but also light EVs, but also shuttles, but also all the different type of connected and automated vehicles. We also have the policies coming from the regulators, which can be enforced in the different stacks of the picture. Then the operation management, which is more about the fleets management, the traffic management, traffic distribution, etc. Those kind of more operational parts, so mobility fleets and all. And finally, the digital mobility solutions, which are basically the different user-centric application that we have inside of our smartphones to either book or use mobility at a more service-driven level. And so all of this, when we speak of all of this, what we want to question in the chair and in the work that we do in the activities that I mentioned is really the role of infrastructures. So is the role only static, or can it become more dynamic? Is it solely about regulating, or can it become about guiding the different vehicles? What is truly the information that are being shared between the infrastructure and the surroundings in a way? Then when we speak of those new digital capabilities coming from the stack 1 and 2, what is their purpose? What is their objective? So is it for the resilience? Is it for the scalability? Is it for the efficiency? Or is it for all of it, basically? So we believe that by having this system-driven approach, we have something that we can make decisions for the collective good in a way, and not for the individual selfish gains of one vehicle. Then we speak also of each layer using different devices and technologies. And so we must have something that is able to interoperate the different legacy systems coming from the different parties. So some platforms or some tools to basically make sure that all the different legacy systems can discuss with one another and can provide some level of standardization, or maybe not standardization, but at least something to make them discuss. And then finally, of course, because it's very key, the governance and business model of each layers must be studied. So inside of each layer, but also in between each layer, because we speak of new uncharted work. So it's really important that the governance and business models are being considered for the longer run, for the sustainability. And so basically, if we had to summarize all of this vision inside of one cornerstone question, it would be what is the desirable distribution of roles between infrastructure and vehicles for a human-centered perspective? So really something that is meant for humans and thinking about the role of infrastructure for making better human-centered mobility systems. So with that being said, I will let Jakob.
Thank you, Edgar, for this, for our point of view, Edgar and Tarek. I will now give the floor to Eric. So Eric from Nokia Bell-Labs, and I will show your slides.
Hello, everyone. Eric Lacombe speaking. Can you hear me?
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, first of all, to give me the opportunity for this, to participate in this very interesting session. So I'm working for Nokia Bell-Labs, the research and innovation arm from Nokia Groupe, and I'm in charge of mobility partnerships and projects. Basically, in our mobility department, we are looking for the best balance between off-boarded equipment and between on-boarded equipment and off-boarded digital infrastructure. And our goal is to develop the off-boarded part. And here on the slide, it's how we see the enablers of the digital infrastructure, using quite the same category as the one presented by Edgar right now. So we see at the bottom a distributed digital infrastructure stack with the maps, the beam of physical infrastructure, with the perception system, different one, with the signaling solution. And these are the ones provided by partners we are working with. And in blue, that's the Nokia part. And in bold blue, the Nokia Bell-Labs part we are working on, so the real-time distributed controllers and the real-time distributed database system. The Nokia cellular V2X radio communication. We are more talking here about UU CV2X, and we are not much doing the CITS, and for sure the 5G part. And we have the cooperative infrastructure, where we are working on the edge deployment automation and the monitoring of the edge, as homogeneous possible monitoring of one single system as possible, and the real-time supervision. I will come back on. So what we do at Bell-Labs for mobility is about edge automation and supervision system, providing guidance to vehicles, can be to vehicles autopilot or ADAS or human drivers. And our goal is to develop a supervision system aiming at delivering a kind of class A from the Martin classification that Martin has just described. It would be a class A cooperative driving services with vehicles guided by the infrastructure. And we do that through experimental projects. We have two projects in France, a project of cooperative autonomy between high-speed vehicles and a dedicated lane infrastructure equipped with perception. This project is not public yet, but this is performed with several partners, including an important road operator. And the second project, the 5G open road project, involving a large number of members of the French automotive and mobility ecosystem, aiming at deploying a 5G platform to test several use cases for advanced driving. That's it for the presentation.
Thank you, Eric. I will now hand over to Adam. So I think, Adam, you prepared some slide that you want to share.
Yeah, so just to present our project as well. So maybe I can do it here. Can you see my screen? Can you see it, the presentation?
Yes, but it's not full screen.
Well, maybe I can leave it like that because it's just 2 slides and I don't know how to. So,
you can change it at the display settings in at the top in the middle. Then yes, that one.
Okay, so thank you very much for the invitation to be part of this roundtable, and thank you very much for the effort that has been done in this colloquium.
You can click on duplicate slideshow.
I think his screen froze.
Ah, okay.
Is it clear or not, the presentation?
It's frozen, but it doesn't matter. You can speak.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, no problem. So I just want to thank you and thank the speakers from this morning, Katya and Martin. I think it was a completely interesting, absolutely interesting talk this morning, the 2 of them, and very relevant to the work we're doing and for the discussion I imagine that we're going to have. So I'm going to be presenting today our work and our vision for the Future Cities Lab, which is a collaboration between Laboratory of Industrial Engineering in Centralized and École Centrale Pékin and University of Beihang in China, one of the leading engineering schools in China. And so I don't know if you can see my slides or not, but assuming that you can. So I just want to put the context of our vision for the future infrastructure, and our focus is primarily one of the topics that have been mentioned many times in the talks in the morning, which are the interdependencies. In the morning, it was focused on an interdependency between the digital infrastructure and the mobility infrastructure. But of course, there are many layers of interdependencies that come into this future of the infrastructure in general. And in particularly, these, and as mentioned in the morning, these are based on the improvements in telecommunication technologies, digital technologies, Internet of Things, and the ability to actually provide new services that were not possible before. Yet in this context, and this is what we're interested in the Future Cities Lab, it has been very rare that research been driven by modeling the interdependencies explicitly. In fact, most of research, the detailed research that have been going through for decades, was focused on modeling each infrastructure as an independent island, where you're more focused on how to manage infrastructure. And even our experience with talking to industrials and practitioners, we get surprised to see that in many of the cases, they don't even know what happens in the other infrastructures, although they may highly depend on each other. So for example, think about the electricity infrastructure and the transportation when we talk about using electric vehicles, for example, or the telecommunication and pretty much any infrastructure that depends today on the telecommunication networks. So in this sense, what we're trying to do, and our vision for this is to increase our research focused on modeling these interdependencies, and to explicitly propose approaches and frameworks of how these can be properly done. So it's an exploratory research, but also in a practical side to try to provide maybe insights and solutions to current problems. So just to give you an example of some of the problems we work on in the Future Cities Lab. Ranging from the interdependencies between the mobility sector and the power sector, in terms of economic analysis, techno-economic modeling, how to set proper price signals for the users so that they don't overload any of the systems, or for example, resilience assessment and how if a system is more dependent on the other infrastructure, this can lead to an increase or a decrease in the failure probabilities of the different systems. We also look at the accessibility and inclusivity, and this is a topic that we cannot imagine a future of infrastructure that is not inclusive and it is not accessible to pretty much everyone. And of course, we work also on some of the economic aspects. So our vision is more global. We tackle many topics from research framework and to propose ideas of how to look at these infrastructures more and more into interdependent way. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. As there is some problem with your screen, could you please stop the sharing so that, because it's frozen? Yeah, thank you. So now let's start out with our discussion. Thanks a lot. So the first question I would like to ask you would be about really the challenges that we are faced for developing an innovative mobility system. So, for example, how does the infrastructures as it is currently built prevent, for example, such developments? And what has to be changed? And what are the different actors currently able to commonly develop such an infrastructure? So what do you see as the major challenges? Maybe I will first, sorry, I forgot Jan Briand. I'm very sorry for that. I forgot your initial input, Jan. We cannot hear you. Your voice is very strange.
Is it better now?
Yes, much better.
All right, okay. Okay, so thanks for the invitation, Jakob. I would say that my current interest on the future infrastructure is mainly focused on road infrastructure, but we observe today that mass transportation and mobility in general is largely digitalized, and it includes the end user services such as guidance application, a better interoperability, booking, payment, ticketing, etc. And in parallel, the exploitation of transport networks takes advantage from these progresses through extended supervision system, decision support tools. And one can observe that mass transit made within the last 15 years a lot of progresses to optimize the crowded networks and enhance the offers and the level of service. And the local authorities and mass transit operators implement crowd management strategies to cope with the peak of charge and disruptions. And usually citizens understand very well these processes and the constraints they generate. And it appears that road traffic management, and I'm talking about mainly light vehicle, is merely out of this scope. Road traffic management exists, it is implemented on a daily basis, but the approach is globally based on reaction. Local authorities and drivers admit that congestion will take place every day on identified location with regular patterns, and everyone is trying to test the best option to out of this forecasted failure, I would say. And there's a few reasons, I see a few reasons connected to that. First, that the mobility, in the realm of mobility, drivers are still considered as pioneers, and they benefit from an extended liberty to go wherever they want and whenever they want, without any constraints except the time lost in congestion. Drivers are also fundamentally driven by an individualistic mindset, and this works for everyone behind the steering wheel, I think, and they consider that they could be smarter than the others. Other point is that people still believe that the automated vehicles will magically solve this issue of congestion, even so the models are not clarified yet. But I guess that this tendency is currently decreasing. And also there are a few issues with the local authorities that are used to be overflown by private solution, and once again react against this proposal, mainly by regulation when they can. And very often the solution are based on business model which totally escape from the public stakeholders. And so eventually the mobility public policies are built on old schemes, I would say, which consist in investing in equipment, a bit of communication, and I'm not talking about telecommunication, but really marketing and communication, and expecting that users will follow. This could work, or this works, until you want to change the rules. But if you like to change the rule and you then change the equipment, then you will need more than public communication. You will need education and enrollment to implement new policies. So today, I think that the car is the only transport mean that does not really interact with the infrastructure and its managers, the managers of the infrastructure, at the same level than the other transport means. And we rely on exogenous information and instruction to implement traffic measures. But in a modern mass transit system, we need to implement proactive management systems and concepts, and to create a direct link with the cars and the drivers.
Thank you. Thank you,
Could
Jan.
go further, but I will keep the rest.
There is always a lag because I need to turn on my microphone and then there's a little pause. Thank you, Jan. Okay, so and sorry again for because you didn't have slides, and so I didn't have you in my. Okay, so let's get to my first question. So about the challenges faced by the development of innovative mobility systems. So what challenges are we facing, and how does the existing infrastructure prevent, for example, such developments, and how and are the different actors able to commonly and to collaborate on the development of such infrastructures? I think, Jan, you answered this already a little bit, right, by opposing private and public sector, and I think maybe Eric, you can have a first go on this question.
Okay, thank you. Regarding the existing infrastructure, I'm not the expert, and I will not elaborate much on that. For sure, when you start from scratch, it's easier to deploy optical fiber and perception system. This is clearly a challenge, but as far as I'm concerned, I see the challenge of collaboration and the challenge of integration as the main one, and followed by the challenge of adaptability of the system and scalability of the system. As far as integration is concerned, I think sometimes we have to face with a very different application to integrate. Adam mentioned the interdependent infrastructure, electrification, transportation, and telecommunication, and sometimes we are facing totally proprietary application, and it's not always possible to Kubernetize all the software of the partners. So integration is really an important matter, and we are trying to develop design models and engineering design models, allowing to integrate a different kind of environment together. And we are also working on the automation of it and the possible monitoring of a single system. So this is research work we are doing for quite some times now, and we have some tools to do that. We are testing in the mobility and transportation environment. and it's always an important point of the collaboration, which is not limited to defining the shared goals, but also understanding what are the overlap and understanding what are the main constraints of the different existing solution, and to make it one piece and one system. Yeah, and maybe finally,
I think this is quite interesting, because having a working together system, a totally integrated system, do you think this will really? Do you think this is the solution? Because this looks like a very centralized supervisor or centralized, but there is many now working approaches towards more decentralization and communication. And for example, if you think about smart contracts or these kind of things, so there is a lot of things where we actually do not have a centralized system, but local agents who are communicating and organizing themselves. What is your take on this? And then maybe I go over to Adam, just maybe a few words.
Yeah, I don't think centralization is the only way. Adaptation of a platform I think, is the right way to proceed, and the different subsystems can have their own, with the agent you mentioned, their own system. But what we need to have, and it's very important in order to answer correctly to the safety requirements, is to have a monitoring of the whole system as a whole, and we need to have a platform, and this is what we are trying to do, a kind of supervision platform that must adapt to various capabilities, on-board and off-board capabilities. So we need to adapt to various type of vehicles and the various type of onboarded sensors and ADAS version of different vehicles, but also the various type of perception and the various type of communication. Also, we mentioned one or two, but this is very important.
Okay, thank you, Adam. How do you see this?
I completely agree with Eric's point on the future is going to be a platform of platforms. But I would like just to, maybe from my small experience, highlight the main two problems I actually think exist in today's management of the infrastructure. In no way we're close to having mature protocols of coordination between the different stakeholders coming from different infrastructures. So like managing different infrastructure, we're in no way close to have anything that resembles a good coordination between those system operators. And while, of course, theoretically speaking, so in our research, when we do these kind of centralized approaches, and we always show the benefit of a centralized approach, which is a theoretical, of course, optimal of how these systems would outperform if coordination is 100% and so on, and etc. Of course, this is not realistic, and there are many governance and economic factors that are not factored into these kind of studies. Yet, the way I think two things needs to be well understood is how to develop new coordination mechanisms that allows companies, private companies, to exchange information and to exchange. So I'm thinking again about the example of electric vehicles and the electric industry. So we have an independent system operator for the electric industry who doesn't have any access on traffic flow. Of course, only have the public access to traffic flow and so on, which might be okay today. But imagining in 10 years from now, when a lot of electric vehicles are going to be on the road, the system operator managing this infrastructure needs to have information and data about what is going on in the traffic model itself, or in the traffic network itself. Finally, I think, so coordinating is a key, and I don't know where we are today about this, but it doesn't seem that we are very advanced on this topic. And the second thing is that imagining a new actually institution, and this is kind of like coming back to the question we talked about with Katja this morning, was imagining new institutions similar to the system operator, for example, for the electricity system, who is going to have a wider So these are usually government or like independent institutions who might have wider access to information that combines different infrastructure. And today we don't have that. So we don't have a system operator that controls or that understands or that manages more than one infrastructure at a time. But maybe this will be needed. And I'm not sure that we're having this discussion yet.
Yes, I think this is very interesting, especially also for the second question we will be discussing. But before that, I would like to have Jan's point of view.
Yes, on this matter, coming back on your previous question, Jakob, the opposition between centralized and decentralized. As you know, we are at the RT Systemic exploring some decentralized solution, taking on board the blockchain technology. But when talking about mobility and especially multi-modality, there is a need for orchestration, that's for sure. There is also, there are a set of rules, especially if we talk about road transportation. And this is, I think, they have more impact than within mass transportation. I mean, when you're driving a 2 tons vehicle, it's quite different than when you're cheating to enter the subway or the bus. And eventually, as Adam mentioned, there is a need for this managing role. And someone has to take it over, and I think it should be some kind of public authority or subsidiarity of a public authority, because you have to coordinate everything, and you have also to be smart and wise and to adapt the framework, the rules, taking into consideration the backup from the users and the infrastructure. And this is a job. This is for sure a complex job, and we're also talking about how we could feed this job with a lot of information and tools and everything. But at the end of the day, someone has to take this responsibility, and I think it's not yet mature in the heads of the local authorities.
Yeah. Thank you, Jan. For Tarek and Edgar, I will not be asking you maybe for this question, but maybe only for the final question, because we do not have so much time left. So my second question is actually about the integration of how to approach the integration of physical and digital infrastructure in a complex environment broader than the mobility scope. So that's actually it. So what about this interaction and the relationship of mobility infrastructures with other systems? So what about electricity, for example? What about also other urban networks? What about the health system, right? So what does it mean if there is so many congestion in your city that everyone always comes too late to their hospital appointments or whatever, right? So there is so many interactions you can imagine. So I would really like to hear your point of view about this part. Maybe Eric, do you want to start? Or do you, yeah?
I think Adam's points was very, very valid. I have no much to add to that. When you were speaking, I was thinking about the digital twin. I think it's important to stay specific, and I don't see our work going into too much distinct direction. So for the time being, as far as we are concerned, our focus remains on the transportation, and we don't address much the whole digital twin of the total environment we are addressing, but we have a focus on the transportation one.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Maybe Adam, you want to?
So I just want to add maybe one thing, which is it's very normal, of course, that we keep also working on each innovation by itself. But when it comes to the question of what motivates us finally, or like, for example, we are motivated by research and exploration, right? And this is easy to do because we have the freedom to do that without worrying so much about anything except the interest in the question itself. And the question now is that how to motivate others, which is the real stakeholders who actually control the infrastructure or manage it or innovate in it, to have this approach in collaboration and coordination. And I think then the question becomes what incentives should be given or should be designed for existing companies or authorities for them to start finding or seeing that there is an economic value also to extract by a better coordination between the infrastructures. So in fact, I think in one way we want to show that there is a huge economic value to be extracted from there. So like you said, the congestion is costly, but it's not only costly for the transportation sector, it's also costly for the healthcare system. It's also costly for the infrastructure, the electricity infrastructure. And there is a lot of economic value to be extracted by properly coordinating. And then a lot of question about, okay, so who gets this economic value and how is it distributed if it's improved and so on. And all of these questions might be a lead to incentivize the different parties to actually seek the others to coordinate better, let's say.
Yeah. I think this value sharing is a big topic, but if everyone can see the benefits, then it's good. But it's also about whether you want to open up things to others and whether they will become competitors or not. So I think there is this topic, it's called Copetition, right? So it's different actors who are cooperating in some ways, but also competing in others. So this is very interesting. It's interesting, I think, also from the practical point of view, but also from the theoretical or modeling point of view. So maybe Jan, you want to add something?
Yeah, perhaps something a complement, some kind of I would say prerequisite to this approach is the issue of the funding allocation. I would like to mention, because we're talking about investing about infrastructure, and investments on infrastructure and equipments are essential. But if you expect people to use the services in a way radically different that they are used to do, and that's what we're talking about, and that these new behaviors will generate benefits, that's what Adam was mentioning, then you should also invest on people. And I'm not talking about only marketing, but I'm talking about, we don't have enough time to discuss that broadly, but the notion of marketplace, which also is included in this platform approach, it's very critical, because we are not talking we're not talking about distributing vouchers for a department store, but injecting value in a single environment or an interconnected environment, and targeting the way this value is distributed and it's the way it's usable to enhance the global functioning of the system. And this is also, from a public perspective, radically different from investing on gear with a defined return on investment. This is something, this is really a revolution, I would say, which needs to go by with this technological enhancement we are discussing right now.
Thank you, Jan. So that sounds really exciting when we are facing a revolution, right? So, so are there any more comments or questions or discussion points you want to add? Maybe Tarek or Edgar, you have something you want to add further?
I would like to add something. First, I totally agree with the fact that coordination and collaboration is very important, and the fact that we are nowhere near from having clear coordination protocols, like Adam said. But I think that such coordination starts with projects like ours, where we bring together different stakeholders, from electricity grid managers to car manufacturer. And this could be one of many steps towards a proper coordination between different stakeholders and a proper integration of future mobility into the broader scope.
Are there any further points? So if this is not the case, then I would like to really thank you. So also I ask the audience if there is any point, so do not hesitate if you have comments in the chat. But if there is none left, so I would really like to thank you for our roundtable, and also for the two keynotes in earlier this morning, and really I would like to say this was a great session this morning. And I just want to give you now the plan for this afternoon. So this afternoon at 2 we come back to discuss about sustainability challenges for innovation in urban mobility. And of course, in this part, all the three topics we have been discussing since yesterday, so the future of mobility, mobility as a service, and infrastructure, as we discussed it today, they are key aspects of the sustainability question. So I think this will be a really nice synthesis and conclusion to our seminar to discuss these challenges, and maybe we get some hints about how to address these challenges also this afternoon. So please stay tuned, come back at 2 o'clock at the specific link you received in your email, or also that you have the YouTube link on the website. So thanks a lot, everyone, and have a nice lunch break. See you then.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.